And you've just heard the Wendys and Something's Wrong Somewhere, the opening song on their recently reissued album, Gobbledygook. And I'm delighted to be joined by Ian White from the Wendys now. Hello, Ian.
Hi there, how are you doing, Alistair? Okay.
I'm well, thank you, really well.
Good.
Tell us a little bit about that opening track, because it really sets the scene for the album.
Yeah, so obviously the album was on Factory Records, and everyone probably knows quite a bit of either truth or myth about that label. Obviously, central character there was Tony Wilson, and he, the only thing that he stipulated on that album that was going to be the opening track. And that was because he described it as the Scottish drinking song. You know, it's going down smooth, it's going down smooth, you know. So which we thought was hilarious. But yeah, I mean, as a label, they didn't really stipulate much. They really gave you whatever freedom you wanted, or to a certain degree. But that was the only thing that I remember them stipulating for the album. And it was to put that track first.
So how did the Wendys come to be on Factory? Because I was thinking that when I was looking at it, you get your own number. That is quite a rare thing to have.
I know people who have tattoos just with their particular favorite Factory song or release, I should say. You know, just the fact, whatever. Yeah, well, you know, we were just a band that was doing stuff and kind of very much playing in Edinburgh. We didn't play that many gigs elsewhere, some in Glasgow, some in Perth, here, there and everywhere, but tended to be in those probably Edinburgh and Glasgow mainly, but yeah, so we managed to persuade the promoter for the venue at the time, George Duffin, to put us on with the Happy Mondays.
All right.
And that was on their Bummed tour. What was that, 88? And you know, it went really well, and we were talking backstage, and Sean's dad, Derek, that was you know, he was their sort of tour manager, stage manager, whatever. You know, he was adamant. He said, you know, you got to get stuff to Factory. Of course, we'd already sent stuff to Factory. We hardly sent anything to anyone, but we sent it to Factory, 4AD, these kind of people. The ones that you just thought will never get a sniff in there. And you know, to cut a very long story short, you know, that one gig really spurred us on, and we kind of upped our, you know, went from 1 or 2 rehearsals a week to 2 to 3, and over this next year and a half or whatever it was, kept on badgering people, sending more tapes to Factory, never hearing anything. Then suddenly got this call just from Phil Sachs, who was the A&R at Factory at the time, and he said, you know, are you playing sometime? We've heard what you've got, we're interested. And to cut another very long story short, we had a gig in Galashiels organised, of all places, and he had been in London the night before, I think, and he, you know, this is when's this by now? By now this is 1990, and he had been in London the night before, and he lived in Manchester, and he flew to Manchester, got a train to wherever you get it to. I don't know, it was TransPennine or whatever, and then a bus or a hire car or something along those lines. And he came along and saw us and just said on the night, you know, after, it was just after the gig, we were just delighted someone had come to see us, and you know, he said right there, you know, I want to sign you to Factory.
Fantastic.
And we were kind of like, what's going on here? And it turned out that they had been aware of our earlier stuff that we'd sent to them, but they'd kind of never got back in touch with us. And obviously, as the tapes we sent them piled up, we couldn't ignore them. Something like that. I don't know.
It was a great thing for persistence, definitely. But
yeah,
it's interesting. It's not just that it's the label, it's the timing as well, because Manchester at that time, 88, 90, it was the centre of the world, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, this was huge.
Yeah. Oh no, it was. And so, I mean, we you know, we didn't think we'd get a reply, never mind something like what happened. So yeah, it was all very exciting. And as you say, there was so much happening in Manchester. And if I'm being honest, you know, I think people on the Manchester music scene didn't take that kindly to some outsiders being signed to the label.
Right,
you could say quite rightly, but you know, at the time, we sent the tapes and contacted them kind of with another Factory Records in mind, if you know what I mean, the earlier Factory Records.
I do know exactly what you mean.
Because at the time it was obviously they were starting to, you know, it was all Top of the Pops and daytime radio play and things like that.
Yeah.
You know, when I was getting into bands on Factory, you know, you would rarely hear them, and it would always be after, was it 7 p.m? Whenever the show that was on before John Peel,
Yeah,
whatever time that started at, it was the evening slot.
Yeah,
and that's
the slot. Yeah,
yeah, and you know, Dave Jensen and Mark Goodyear,
yeah,
and these kind of people, Goodyear, and yeah. So, and people don't, I think, younger people don't realize just how, you know, just how god awful the you know, the situation was in terms of music on radio. It's nothing like it is now. You know,
no,
6 Music or whatever all day long.
absolutely.
You know, you got about you got that slot. I think it was 7:30, and then Peel was on at 10, and then, you know, when I was a student, I'd sit and I'd listen to them while I was trying to do some kind of coursework or something, and then I knew I was in trouble if I was into Brian Matthews territory. Afterwards, you know, that was like midnight to 2 or 3 or something. But anyway, it was, yeah. I don't know if I've answered your question, but yeah, I think there was loads happening in Manchester.
Yeah.
And
so you were seen as kind of outsiders. That's quite interesting.
Yeah, and we're seen as we've always felt we felt like we were outsiders up here as well, because there was quite a lot of, you know, the kind of Glasgow soul thing and whatnot, and that kind of, obviously there were lots of scratchier and more underground bands in Glasgow as well, but yeah, there was quite a pop sensibility in Glasgow.
It was definitely at that time.
And I think that was the media in Scotland led with that, I think. So we didn't really feel at home here either. But I mean, Factory made us feel more than welcome, and there were plenty of people who did in Manchester as well. It's just I kind of know for a fact there were quite a few people that were either in bands or were DJs or whatever that kind of thought, what are we getting here?
Where have they come from? So, Gobbledygook, the album itself, that was produced by Ian Brodie. So how was it working with him?
That was great. And again, it harks back to what I was saying about an earlier Factory, and it shows the kind of things we were interested in. It was the Bunnyman connection that excited us. It wasn't the fact he was, you know, doing other stuff with other Factory bands and things like that at the time. So yeah, it was that, and so we were totally in awe of you know, working with him. And he came up. We did the More Than Enough recording, which was kind of test, if you like. Could he work with us? Could we work with him? And he wasn't sure, to be honest. And then he came up, and we got on great. And that became the white label that has never really been released yet. In terms of, well, when I say released, there was a 12-inch that went to DJs and whatnot back at the time. That was right just after we signed. That went out, but as we might get on to, all the stuff's from Factory is going to be, or it's started. The album's now on the streaming services, and all the other Factory catalogue, all our other Factory catalogue tracks are going to be as well. So there'll be a lot of people who haven't heard the vocal version of More Than Enough, because there's instrumental that's a B-side, but this might be the first time they've heard it when that actually appears.
So how did the reissue of the album come about? What's kind of prompted this to be?
Well, you know what, for quite a few years now, we or other people have been trying to re-release our Factory catalogue, including some people that we would really have liked to have done it with, but Warner Brothers owned it. Right. And they kind of stymied it, but recently someone has bought what London Records had owned of the Factory catalogue, and I think they're starting to put all that stuff onto the streaming services. So, excellent. Yeah.
And last week you supported Black Grape. How was that for a night out? And
sorry,
how was that? How did it?
It was fabulous, I have to say. Sound was great. The people that work at it was a Liquid Rooms in Edinburgh. All the sound people and lighting and everything, they were great. So we enjoyed it. It was quite a short set. It was half hour. But Arthur, our bass player, lives in Cardiff, so it's kind of difficult getting him here for a rehearsal and whatnot. So when we were offered a half hour, we thought, perfect. We can pick all the ones that are easy to play or easy to remember, which isn't quite the case. But it was good. It was very much. It was everything was from factory days. Quite often when we've played in recent years, we've played quite a few from our self-released album. But so it's kind of like old times, and you've got people like Alan McGee and Irvin Welsh bouncing about the place, and so it was good. It was good. Couldn't get to sleep that night. It was on adrenaline for quite some time.
Fantastic. And with that in mind, Ian, are you going to be doing new gigs or even new music?
Well, it's funny. We always say this is going to be the last one, and I don't know if it was the adrenaline talking, but we were in a bar afterwards, and Arthur has friends who were in a band called Garlic, and they were there, and we were kind of saying, they want us. The promoters want us to do another one in Glasgow, or probably Glasgow, but I was saying it's a lot of work for one show, and we're kind of we've got commitments and whatnot, but something that was a long weekend, it'd be quite nice to do an Edinburgh or Glasgow and a Liverpool or Manchester and a London or Cardiff. That's the way we can sell it to Arthur. We'll start in Edinburgh, and he can go and see his mum, and then at the end of it, he's home. So
perfect. Well, if you do come to gig in Glasgow, let me know, because I'd love to see you live. It sounds like a great night.
Yeah. Well, there's definitely decent audio recorded. There's bits of video, and we'll kind of see what we've not had a chance to filter through it yet.
Yeah.
But we had a friend from a band that we used to play gigs with back in the very early pre-Factory days, and in fact, you might have played them. Salt, they're in now. They're as in the Edinburgh Salt, not the one that's kind of getting a lot of exposure. So Robin helped us take some pictures and video and switch record on a few things. So
there's some footage and stuff out there.
Yeah. It's just how much there is. I'm not quite sure. We'll see.
Okay. Well, Ian, thanks very much for taking the time to have a chat. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
And this is the Wendys and the title track of the album, Gobbledygook.